Welcome back everybody to a brand new video. Today's video is going to be on pre-season injury lists. I've been waiting for this article for a bit of time now since Fantasy opened, and it's always a good article every year. Normally we get a very similar article. This is this year's rendition of it, and it goes through who is still not on the track at their pre-season club and who's burning up the track. Very handy for fantasy planning as we can see who is doing well and who we might need to avoid based on injuries. Here is the article from AFL.com, which is very good. I've had a read through it. Well done to the people who contributed there. It's a fantastic article. I've also got here I have a injury list from the Gold Coast Bulletin. They put out an injury list, which is also some good reading. And the third site I'm going to have a look at is AFL ratings done by Pete, who does a very good job there. He lists every injury update. You can see he's got the latest ones there. Definitely one to have in your favourites list. aflratings.com.au, fantastic site, 10 out of 10 in my opinion. So now I'll be linking all these three articles, or the two articles and the website in the description, but let's crack on with the afl.com.au article of the preseason. Let's have a talk about that. So let's start off with Adelaide. Adelaide Crows, we got Matt Crouch, who's being put back into training, so I think that's a good thing. If you got Matt Crouch, because he does look like a little bit of value, I wouldn't be watered off by that. Just make sure he turns up to that preseason game. He might be modified, but that's fine. Tick him off. The other two, not really fantasy relevant. Time Trial Kings, we got Lockie Scholl. Just keep in mind, I read he was injured the other day, so that might be good for the other Adelaide Crows around there, like Miller. Uh, we'll have to see, but just keep an eye on that one, see what Lockie Scholl's doing. Obviously, he was doing very well on the track. We'll scroll down. Darcy Fogarty, not fantasy relevant. All right. Brisbane. Brisbane have no major fantasy injuries, which is great news. Definitely not seeing Cockatoo on there, which is good. There's obviously a long way to go before round one, and he's injury prone. But if he can get a gig round one, this article doesn't write him off or anything. And Joe Danaher as well, being he seems to be in good fitness as well. So if you're thinking about Joe Danaher, that seems to be fine as well. Um, we've got Jared Berry and McCluggage. I did read this and I thought maybe there might be some midfield time there for one of them too. They might push off the wing. I was in Eli Smith being marked for a wing role in this comment, so I thought, well, if that happens, one of these two will have to push off a wing and into the centre. So that's one to watch. Onto Carlton, Curnow, Charlie Curnow still doesn't look like he'll be back for round one. Eddie Betts got injured, not fantasy relevant. The fantasy relevant players are the next lot. Newman and Marchbank, of course, ones to look for your backline, and Kemp will be playing down back by all reports as well. Interrupted pre-seasons for all of them. Watch this space, watch the pre-season, and watch who's picked for round one out of that lot. Cripps coming back to full fitness, so maybe a slow start for Cripps. We'll have to see. And Doherty, maybe a slow start for him. I'd be a bit wary about Doherty. All right, who's time trial king? Sam Walsh there. That's fantastic. He had those huge numbers last year. It looks like continuing on with that. So this article, if you're thinking about Walsh, definitely confirms that. Let's go on to Collingwood. Darcy Moore, not too big of an impact, but if he doesn't play, then that is an impact on Jeremy Howe, who also has had a interrupted preseason by the sound of it. We'll be looking for the preseason to make sure Jeremy Howe plays. If he is value, if he does play, and I would want Darcy Moore to play as well. If not, he normally goes into that key back role, and then he's a no-go. Who else we got? We got Josh Dacos, so I've seen a lot of, or not a lot, but definitely a few people looking at. Just watch him, make sure that he's good to go. And Darcy Cameron might be one as well if he's not ready to go. That might put some more value into Max Lynch on our benches. Uh, Jordan De maybe he goes back. He might take Elliott's role in the midfield. That's the attend to centre bounce and then go forward role. A few players do that. De could be one of those players. I don't see him being a permanent midfielder. On to Essendon. Essendon, big news here actually. I wasn't following this one. Dyson Heppel, still training away from the main group and doubt for start of the season. I did have him in my original side. I might have to reconsider that one now. I was a bit doubtful anyway about him because I don't know if he'll be getting the midfield minutes stated for a half-back role this year. So the stars might unalign there, and Dyson Heppel might find his way to the bleachers instead of being in my team. Other notes here: Zaharakis may not be available, but he hasn't been fantasy relevant for a few years now. Modified duties. No one really that we're picking. Perkins, yeah, I don't think he would have been picked anyway, so that's not too bad. And Dylan Clark, yeah, again, not fantasy relevant. This one's who's Sam Draper. He at one point last year, I was thinking about putting him as my only rock. I wouldn't do that this year, unless Andrew Phillips was way out of the equation. But it's good to know he's tearing up the track, and hopefully he can come maybe in future years a ruckman that is a fantasy jet for us. All right, on to Fremantle. Fremantle, Sonny Walters. If you had, he's already been kicked out of that midfield. He's playing half forward now for Fremantle. And if you were going to pick him and on that, I wouldn't be picking him now. He's had interrupted pre-season, not in the midfield. That red flag getting thrown there. So stay away. Darcy in the brace. Probably just means Rory Lobb will play ruck, and that's what happened last year. So I wouldn't. That doesn't have much fantasy relevance. The key defenders for Fremantle back, working their way into the main group. If you need warm bodies on that defender bench, they won't make cash though. It's always hard. Do you spend up and have someone playing, or do you just maybe pick someone that will score better but not playing? Yeah, that's a conundrum, but it's good to hear that those two boys, are back on the track. Who else? Darcy Tucker, coming back from a hamstring injury. Maybe not fantasy relevant anyway, but I was going to track him. I'll still track him, but I'll definitely put that note down. Liam Henry, no, not fantasy relevant. Liam Henry. All right, on to Geelong. Big blow here. Patrick Dangerfield, groin injury. When it seems like he had that injury late last year, and that's why he got pushed forward. It's come out. Interrupted preseason, maybe starting forward. You can't pick him on that information, I don't think. If anything, hopefully for us fantasy coaches, he plays, has a dip, gets moved to the midfield, and when that happens, we can pick him up cheap. So, Dangerfield, put a big red line through Dangerfield. Who else have we got here? Who's flying? Jordan Clark. One to track. If he can get into that Geelong side, Geelong are a high scoring side, he might just score some points by it because he's at the park, being on the park. So there's one to track. On to Gold Coast, Matt Rowell. They want him cherry ripe for round one. So if you read that he's not on the track or not doing as much, I think it's because they want him for round one. They know that this guy is the key to their future, and he needs to be fit. I reckon he will score very big this year. And at worst, even if he does average 90, that's still a great gain for us. I think a lot of sides will have him round one, and so even if he does bad because of that, it won't be as big. So I think you're obligated to pick Matt Rowell. I think you just have to pick him now. There's no, unless of course he's injured and not playing. But I think he will be there round one, and you will have to pick him. Who else we have? Yep. Noah Anderson maybe? I think for the same price, I think there's some better options, but I think Noah Anderson's year will be not this year, it will be the year after. I think third year. I think that's the year we got to look for this guy. I think he'll have another year where he won't quite crack the big minutes in the midfield, and but when he does, I think he showed enough at times last year that he might be someone we need to have on our radars in the future. Onto the Giants. No injuries at the Giants besides Phil Davis, which is great. We're going to have a good look at that midfield and see who's going to be in there and what points are scored. Because obviously with the Giants, it seems like always someone's out of that midfield. We really need to see what it looks like when it's full guns blazing. So we'll get a look at that. On to our next one, which is Hawthorn. Obviously, James Sicily is not going to be playing. It looks like Gunston's going to have a delayed start, and Mitchell seems to be coming back to training but interrupted pre-season. So there might be a few opportunities at the Hawks, and also just if you are one of the guys picking Tom Mitchell, just keep in mind that he has had an interrupted pre-season. One I do like this year a little bit that's growing on me is Finn McGuinness. If he can get a midfield role at Hawthorn, that would be fantastic, and he's very cheap. So even maybe through the year, if he gets that midfield role, he might be a great downgrade target. And Tom Phillips also doing burning nice time trial. That's great to hear. I think he's lock and loaded for my forward line, 90 average. On to Melbourne. Helmut Brayshaw is still recovering. He'd be a no-go anyway. I don't know. We're never going to see those numbers. It seems like it seems like he's always just going to be there and thereabouts. Yeah, so it doesn't really matter. Not fantasy relevant in my book. Marty Hoare, sad news, down for the season. Yeah, I don't know what that will do for us. Maybe we'll give someone at Melbourne a go. We'll have to see. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Let's go into the next side. North Melbourne. North Melbourne should be a lot of opportunities this year. Unfortunately, looks like Comben is going to be out for the start of the season, which is he was going to be on my bench, which is unfortunate. He's got that ruck forward, so that's really nice for Comben. Who else? Dumont. Just a bit of tightness. He should be right to go. So that doesn't help us with any spots in the midfield. Time Trial Kings, name that stuck out here for me was Lockie Young, who I'm looking to pick in the back line, so it's great that he's come and he's fit. Yeah, who's flying? Luke Davies-Uniacke. Let's hope he has a good year. A lot of promise, but hasn't really delivered for us for fantasy. And Phoenix Spicer, who is a draftee this year, so maybe a rookie that we might pick, although I don't think we'll get that good a scoring out of him. On to Port Adelaide. Hartlett coming off knee surgery, so it looks like he'll be right to go. Ryan Burton, who has had good numbers, but not consistently good numbers, so it looks like he's had an interrupted preseason, so yeah, probably not on the radar. Lockie Jones, that's one that has been popping up on benches. Good to see that he is killing it on the time trials. And he's flying, so that's even better. He might be one we pick. Ken Hinkley's huge on this guy, so definitely watch out for him. Richmond, Basher Houling, calf injury, red flag. If you see an older guy with a calf injury, that is bad news all round. They really struggle getting over those calf injuries. So Basher Hooley put a red line through Basher Hooley. I'm sold out for the year, so Nane Kavus will obviously benefit from that. How much? Jury's out on that one. Time Trial King, Dustin Martin with the forwards, so he should be beating the forwards. He should be competing with the midfielders. Dion Prestia, that could be a good unique who's undervalued, and if he's flying, that's great. Obviously back from injuries, so that's really good news. Yeah, track Dion Prestia. That's my advice there. St Kilda, Jade Gresham, not getting managed. He attends as bounce and runs forward, so he's not a really. You'll see his bounce numbers high, but he's not a fantasy player. Hunter Clark modified, so if you're one of the guys thinking Hunter Clark might move to the midfield, maybe hold off on that. Maybe wait and see a bit. He'll be unique, so you don't really need to start with him. Uh, the downside of that would be way higher than the upside. Paddy Ryder, that's huge if well, he's old, so you would expect him to be in a separate session, but if he can step out of the side and Marshall hits number one ruck, he's almost a must pick forward. Um, and you'd expect Frawley to be missing there. Jack Steele flying, doesn't matter, he's full priced. Alright, on to Sydney. Lance Franklin running on the track. Yeah, cool. I want to see him pick round one and still flying. if I And I still probably won't pick him. I think you you can't pick Franklin. I think he won't have those numbers that we all think all know him to have. He will have smaller numbers. I want to manage him. They want to get as many games out of him as possible. Heaney on a similar track. Hopefully, I'm more confident about Heaney. I think that's good news for Heaney because obviously a lot of people picked him. He's got a bit of a discount, and to see he's on the path to playing, that's good news for us. Some injuries there. Dawson, who popped up, well, he's always there and thereabout. I don't know if he has the consistency to pick him in fantasy, but modified, if you are thinking about him, you might just back off now. That might be the nail in the coffin for Dawson to get picked this year. Naismith down. Yeah, so we already knew that. Yeah, all right, on to West Coast. West Coast. Elliot Yeo still battling it out. I think you have to put a red line through Elliot Yeo. He's still return date is uncertain, so we don't know. Luke Shuey is another one I was looking at, but calf issue, I don't like that. I don't like that at all, so that will be a red line through Shuey. See you later. Who we got here? Duggan, that's it. That's one. Simulation. Saw him pushing into the middle of the ground. I guess everyone pushes into the middle of the ground in simulation, but he did do that roll late last year. They did get Withered and in. Is he this year's Dan Houston? Probably. Probably. I'm seeing that. I reckon we'll see him predominantly off halfback with stints in the midfield. So we'll have to wait. But it's good to see. Good. He's flying, so just keep it. He'll definitely be on my watch list. If he's playing midfield, you have to put those guys on. And Western Bulldogs. What do we got? We got Hannon and not fantasy relevant. Shaki, maybe good for Jamara, but yeah, I don't know if he'll be fantasy relevant anyway. And McLean, obviously we knew about his ACL, but that really does spell bad news. Normally when McLean doesn't play, one of those gun midfielders pushes into his role, and that's where the scoring goes down. So is that lights out to McRae? Don't know. Bulldogs midfield is going to be a hard one anyway, so I'm staying away for that reason. And that's all we got. So that is our injury list. So go away, research these things yourself. I would suggest make up a list where you note down all the info that you find on players that you're tracking, and just have that in the mind when you're picking your side. That what sort of preseason they had and injuries. So if you found this message of value today, please like and comment on the video. And if you want to follow my future videos, please subscribe. And I hope all the best for you today, and thank you for listening.